Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to BiblioTech on Air, BiblioTech's official podcast. I'm Rosanna.
I'm Lewis.
And today we have a special guest with us. Some of y'all might recognize him from his Spectrum News podcast or just by seeing him around town, whether he's on the job or doing some volunteer work. We have today Mr. Jose Arredondo. Thank you very much for joining us.
What's going on? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. This is one we've been looking forward to for a good while.
Yeah.
But can you tell us a little bit about yourself for our listeners who might not know what you do or who you are?
Yeah, so once again, I'm Jose Arredondo. I'm a TV news reporter for Spectrum News 1. We're a statewide TV station. I'm based here in San Antonio, but our station's mothership is in Austin. And so that's where the anchors are, the producers, my bosses. Most of my bosses are at. And so it's cool. People in Dallas see me on TV, Austin, Rio Grande Valley, El Paso. So it's really cool to be highlighted, or the things that I highlight get highlighted, across the state. So whenever I'm doing stories on the West Side, East Side, South Side, those stories get amplified to these different cities that may have their own versions of what those barrios are like. And so born and raised on the West Side, 78207. I should have worn my 207 sweatshirt. I always wear it. Yeah, born and raised on the West Side of San Antonio, 78207. Zip code that many folks here in San Antonio know about. So that's where I grew up. And, won an Emmy for a story that I did actually in the 207. It was a big education project that I did back in 2021. Won the Emmy in 2022. And so that's been cool just to do these things on a medium that I didn't think I could do. I was always a writer, wanted to be a newspaper writer, so I never wanted to do TV. But yeah, that's who I am in a nutshell. And for those who don't know, my my unofficial title is your tia's favorite reporter. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because your tag is typically Sports Guy Jose, but your articles and your news, they go so much more in depth. It's not just, it's not sports. It's like you said, education. It touches on subjects throughout the city.
Yeah.
And so you already mentioned a little bit about growing up in the 78207, which is where we're from. We're from BiblioTech West, and we're in the 78207 area. And the purpose of that is because 78207 does tend to be kind of an underserved area. So that's why they decided, we're going to put one of the bibliotheks there to kind of help the community a little bit. But how did your upbringing shape your career and the stories you chose to tell?
Just to kind of go backwards a little bit, because everyone gets confused with my handle. They're like, why is it Sports Guy Jose, but you're doing stories on policy and education and housing that doesn't where are the sports stories at? I always wanted to be a sports reporter. And actually, when I interned with Spectrum News back in the day, back in 2016-17, I got to cover the Spurs. I was in the locker room. I was at every home game. And it was a dream come true. I was with these players interviewing these players and this coach that I idolized as a kid. But at the same time, for my school newspaper and for a blog that I started back in the day, I started highlighting people in my neighborhood and started highlighting issues that affected us. And I started to realize, dang, this is more fulfilling than, Manu Ginobili scored 25 points and recorded 5 assists against the Memphis Grizzlies. It's okay. And so people always tell me, why did you give that up? My thing is, if you don't cover the Spurs, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
People are still going to go watch them play. They're still going to be millionaires. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But if nobody covers these important stories, it can be detrimental to the neighborhood for not highlighting these issues, for not, ultimately these stories, which we hope, could change policies or whatever, it could be that dangerous. And so that's how I try to explain it to people who just still can't grasp, but it's the Spurs. And so for me, the passion started when I was 20, 21, and I wasn't even living in 207 anymore because I left the West Side 207 when I was 15 after my mom died. So I moved around all over San Antonio, specifically the Northeast side. So that's eventually where I graduated high school, Roosevelt High School. But I went from just went with my sister, lived with my dad, then aunt and uncle. And so it all started when I was away from my neighborhood a lot. And so I would take the bus, go play basketball with friends. And I'm
Mhm.
like, man, I miss this. I miss, walking to the corner store. I miss all this. Yeah, and so I started covering this stuff in college and then I just fell in love with it. And so for me, like the way the West Side shaped is just, I think when you're away from where you grew up and not realizing like, wow, we were really poor. Wow, we didn't have that many resources. You don't know that until you go
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Right.
So when I was in Northeast, even though I was in a rough area in the Northeast side, we still had better resources than what I did back in the West Side. I'm at Roosevelt High School. They're like, oh yeah, here's your locker. Here are your textbooks. And I'm like, you get a locker? It's
Yeah.
like they didn't even trust us to have a backpack in SA back in the day, right?
Mhm.
And I love SAISD. I love how they've grown since then. But then we're talking like 15 years ago, right? And things were rough, right? I get why things were the way they were.
Mhm.
And so for me as a kid, understanding like, wow, I didn't have this, and then getting it, it's like, wow. And then, ultimately coming back to the West Side and realizing, like, letting people know, like, we don't have much,
Yeah.
and doing stories on that. And then people starting to realize, wow, my kids don't have much, like, why is that? And so it's been really cool because me doing these stories is kind of like, I don't know, me thinking about, man, that's me, right? Like that's me right there, right? As like the kids that we see, right? The kids that
Mhm.
you see. I used to volunteer at San Juan Community Center right across the street from BiblioTech right there on Sasamora and Brady.
Mhm.
All the kids, would be like, oh, we're going to go to BiblioTech. And I would always like, what is that? And,
Yeah.
and then understanding like, oh, wow, that's cool. Like, I wish that existed when I was a kid,
Mhm.
But I was happy. I was like, wow, like our kids, the next generation gets to reap the benefits, which is great. It should be that way. It shouldn't be just as hard as the way it was when you grew up. And so for me, as a storyteller, I feel like I'm able to be the guy that warns you, right? One of my friends used this as an example. So if you see a rabid dog across the street and it almost bit you, you're not gonna let a kid cross the street and let the dog almost bite them or bite them for them to learn. You tell them, hey, there's a dog over there. Try not to walk over there. Stay
Yeah.
over
Right.
here. And for me, that's how I view like my storytelling. It's like, hey, like there's a lot going against you, but there's a lot that you do have, and it's possible for you to like blossom out of this,
Mhm.
right? Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's incredible. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that.
Very well put.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so important just to be able to not only like realize that like the future generations do deserve better than what you had been given initially, but also knowing that you, having grown up with the struggles that you have, you are probably the best equipped out of anyone to be able to teach the next generation and to guide the next generation into what they can become, and knowing that they are so much more than others may see them as, or they are so much more than any struggles they may go through. And I feel like it just, that sort of compassion builds on itself and builds better communities.
Yeah.
I think the work that you do is so excellent in that regard.
Appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I try my best. So I took a week and a half off
Yeah.
from work, and my bosses were like begging me, like, just take time off.
Mm-hmm.
And even during my break, I was like, hey, like, this thing just happened. My boss is like, take a real break. Like,
Yeah.
don't look at the news. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Some
fine.
well-deserved rest.
Some
Yeah,
self-care.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, I mean, I think about work all the time because it's not work, right? I mean, it sounds corny, right? And cliche, like, oh, if you love what you do, it's not work. And for me, it's not. I mean, I spend time with people and I'm like, dude, this is literally my job. I'm spending time with you and I'm learning about these issues that are affecting you,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm actually spending time with you, unlike other outlets where, they rush their reporters like, hey,
Right.
like we need this by 4:00, right? And it's like sound bites and some B-roll and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna, to me, I call it fast food journalism. That's what it is ultimately, right? Do you want to eat that or do you want to eat some homemade comida that's gonna nourish you and
Mhm.
Right.
Something
so-
familiar, something warming.
Yeah, and so I feel like that's the kind of work that I do, and it may not, I may not be the first, right? But at least it'll be the right story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so to me, that's the most important thing because everybody, especially nowadays, it's just like, hey, I heard this, and one person shares it, and all it takes is like 100 people to share it, and it becomes the truth, and it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we have to do our job to, you know, make sure that the truth gets out, and so it's frustrating at times. That's the only frustrating part about work, and it's not even work related. It's just external forces that are like just sharing misinformation.
Yeah, especially nowadays, it does. Fast food journalism is absolutely, I think, a fantastic term for that because it does just feel like what's going to get the most clicks? Put that out. Doesn't really matter quality. Doesn't matter if it's even true. Yeah. And whenever you were getting into journalism initially, I don't know if the climate was like the way that it is now with that sort of thing back then, but whenever you were breaking into journalism in the first place, were there any particular challenges that you had faced? Was there any kind of pressure that you felt maybe to do a certain type of content that you didn't want to do, anything like that?
No, not really. Like when my mom died, I ended up at Robert E. Lee, which is now just Lee, which is like, what a waste of tax dollars. You kept it the same name. But when I got there, I asked my sister, like, hey, do they have journalism? And the counselor was like, oh, yeah, we have one of the best programs. She undersold it. It was the best program in the state at the time.
Wow.
And so I took journalism there. My sophomore year, transferred to Roosevelt. The program was We had like a part-time teacher who divided his time at a middle school. But then he got replaced by this lady named Allison Berger, who's an amazing woman. She revived the program at Roosevelt. She now works at SAISD. She does the newsletters and comms there.
Nice.
Awesome woman. And so she helped revive the program. She put me into journalism camps. And so I always had like the right people in my corner. Vincent Davis, who I think is the greatest writer in San Antonio. He writes for the Express News, features reporter, does a lot of good stories on the West Side, great storyteller, just a great human being who handles stories with care. And he's retired black guy from Nebraska, like who has no business knowing San Antonio as well as he does, but he loves it so much. And he loves nurturing the next generation of reporters. I've been his mentee since 2012? I was 17. Like, yeah, and so I owe that guy everything. And I love his stories. And every time he and I do a story, we're like, dang, beat me to that one. All right. But I didn't have too many obstacles. Like I wanted to do sports, and I remember my when I was at SAC, which at that time had the best journalism program in the city by far. Nobody could touch us, no university. And I remember they would sign me different stuff, and I'm like, nah, I'm gonna go cover the basketball games. Right?
Yeah.
Girls and guys basketball. I don't really care about SGA, or I don't care. And I'll never forget, we're in the newsroom and something big had happened with the student government, right? The SGA. And the professor was like, whose beat is SGA? And I jokingly said, yeah, whose beat is SGA? I said, that's your beat. And I'm like, oh, man. So they kind of forced me to go cover that. And I was like, all right. And so I was still like, resistant to it. I was like, I'm going to be a sports reporter. Wasn't until I transferred to university and I start, like I mentioned earlier, when I interned with Spectrum, when I fell in love with community reporting. But not too many challenges. I think the only challenge was trying to get hired. You know, I freelanced at the Express News for a whole year. I covered high school sports and I did community stories, which is unheard of. If you freelance, you only do it for one beat. Like if you do food reporting, it's just food. If you do court stuff, if you do whatever, like you just do that. Can't juggle multiple things. Luckily, my mentor got me in through the community side. And then the sports editor, who's now my good friend, Nick, was like, hey, like, sorry you didn't get the job, but he's like, if you want to freelance for us, could get you two games a week. You know, you could do some stats on a Friday night, make some extra cash, you know, whatever. The frustrating part is like my stories were on the community side and the sports side were making the front page. Easier on the sports side, but on the community side, it's hard to make it on the front page.
I bet.
Twice I made it on the front page of the Sunday paper. And what would get me mad is they would switch my byline from correspondent, indicating you're a freelancer, and they would change it to staff writer. And I'm like, I'm not a staff writer.
Yeah.
I don't get benefits from you guys. man, what the? And so I think that was the toughest part was out of college, having to get those rejections and not getting hired. I think that was ultimately the toughest part because when you know you're good enough, because by the time I graduated college, I had more experience at 23 than a 26-year-old reporter had. Like, and I could bet my life on. I interned at a lot of quality places. A lot of people just take internships for the sake of doing it. I tell them, don't do that. It's gonna waste your time, waste of whoever the organization is, their time. And so for me, I did worked for the right people, created a huge body of work. And so just waiting. And thankfully the journalism gods were looking after me because I applied for like a social media job for Spectrum, made it to the last round, didn't get it, applied for all these other places, didn't get those jobs for those newspapers. And out of nowhere, Spectrum calls me, hey, do you want to be a TV reporter? I'm like, what? I wasn't good enough for a social media, but I'm good enough to be a TV reporter? But it was because they kept seeing the work that I was doing and they kept seeing my name in their system. Who is this Jose guy? Like, he interned with us a while back. How does he not have a full-time job yet? And so Spectrum took a chance on me.
Yeah.
I always say I'm the Conan to their Lorne Michaels. And because when Conan O'Brien was an SNL writer, they were looking for someone to replace David Letterman. Conan had no TV experience, no stand-up, and they took a chance on him. And to me, in my opinion, he's arguably the greatest talk show host ever. But to me, it was them taking a chance on me. But I still don't know what it was. It was Alan Waltrip, who still works for Spectrum. He's the one who was just like, let's just hire this kid. Let's just see what he's made of. And it was a match made in heaven. We're a storytelling first news organization. And so, yeah, I think that was the only major challenge was finding a job because it was hard. And I don't want to say that, let's say I did go to, because I graduated from A&M San Antonio. I'm sure if I went to a UT or a Northwestern, I would have had a job if I would have went to those schools with less of the portfolio that I had, I would have gotten the job. But it's like, what? Community college? What? A&M San Antonio? There's an A&M in San Antonio?
Yeah.
And so for me, I like being the underdog. Like, I'm the guy, like, if we're on a basketball court, I'll take all the scrubs. I'd rather win with them than win with everybody that's good.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it doesn't feel good. It's like, okay, whatever. You didn't work hard for that. Like, I did something. You gave me a crappy hand and I flipped it,
Yeah.
And so, that was the only major challenge that I could think of off the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. And you mentioned you went to SAC, like that's where you started off. And SAC, not only are they known for their journalism program, but they also have their photography program, which is a pretty good too, as someone who also did photography there. But
what was his name? McBride, right?
McBride. Yeah, James McBride.
Yeah, legend.
But in your bio also, it's mentioned like you tend to take your camera with you everywhere. So you're pretty well known for your photography in addition to your articles.
Oh, he's got it. He's got it.
I always keep that thing on me.
Very nice.
Just in case.
Yeah. But it's also what I shoot with my stories too. We have our big TV camera, but it's intimidating for people. But I feel like a DSLR, people are mainly used to that now.
Yeah.
It used to be like, 10 years ago, like, oh, wow, that's a fancy camera. Like now, people are very used to DSLRs now.
Yeah.
And phones. I used to shoot a lot of stories with my phone. But I just like how pretty it looks. DSLRs make everything look beautiful. And so, and my main boss was asking me the other day, like, oh, do you put your phone in portrait mode? I'm like, no, man. Like, you stretch that on a TV, it looks bad. Like the portrait mode on your video on your phone, it looks good on a phone, but you put it on a TV, which our content, our TV stories are on TV.
Right, the quality suffers.
Yeah, it like stretches it. I was like, it doesn't look good, but I was like, this. He's like, oh wow, I didn't know that. But I'm sorry to cut you off, but yeah, I always.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Love hearing about it.
Yeah, but I started photography. I took Dr. Lowe, who taught at SAC, Edmund Lowe, amazing professor, critiqued you hard. I remember getting a B in his class was like, man, I could get into Harvard now. Like, this is crazy because he was that hard. And that's what I loved about SAC. They like really challenged you and asked a lot of you. But also at the same time understood like you're here in community college for some reason, right? Whether it's you can't afford university or maybe like you didn't learn how to learn in high school, right? Maybe you, like my case, I didn't learn how to study till my sophomore year of college.
Yep.
I always winged it. And so once you had to really have good study habits in college, it showed in my exams. I was like, man, I really suck at, this learning thing,
Mm.
and so I taught myself how to memorize things, how to learn things. And so, but I took Dr. Lowe's class and he taught us video and photo. And I didn't want to keep renting a camera from the newsroom. So I was like, I'll just buy my own camera. Bought my camera and everywhere I went, I would shoot with it. It was a T6i Rebel that I had. I still have it. I was going to throw it away, but I was like, nah, I'm going to hang this in the rafters.
So you kind of touched on this a bit because you were, I believe, just kind of recommending having good mentors, having good people by your side, but also, not trying to like stick yourself into like one particular niche if you're able to branch out, stuff like that. And if you'd be able to give any advice to young people, specifically people from underrepresented communities, any advice of how to break into journalism, and any advice you'd kind of give any like up and comers, what would you say?
If you're doing it for the money, go somewhere else. I'm kidding. No, the money. I always tell people like nothing pays well unless it's like a fancy job, right? Like it's gonna pay well initially. But if you get good at something, if you're great at something, you're gonna get paid. People like employers are gonna be like, okay, we need to take care of this person financially.
Mhm.
And that happened with me, and that's happened with a lot of people that I know. It's just like, for me, like if you want to be in journalism, like figure out what your why is. Like, why do you want to do it, right?
Mhm.
I know a lot of people, oh, I want to be on TV. Oh, is that really just why you want to do it? Because you want to be on TV? I'm kind of the opposite. Any chance I get to, we'll do pre-recorded intros a lot. And so, because we're 24 hours, so it's like in a cycle.
Mhm.
And so sometimes I'll tell my boss, like, I'd rather my story be longer and you cut my intro where I'm on camera,
Mhm.
just for the sake of me saving my story from getting gutted.
Right.
And so, but my advice would be, I mean, it's obviously attainable. I'm not the smartest. I'm not the most handsome or most charming person. And I still figured it out. I still was able to accomplish it and more. Um, I know what my ceiling is and I can't even see it, right? And I've accomplished a lot. And so I'm nothing special. So you don't have to be special, even though you are special.
Mhm.
But, my advice for the young generation is just work hard, work smart, but just listen to those your elders, those people who have done it. Like find a person who's done it,
Mhm.
right? Like for me, Vincent Davis, he was someone who was doing it, still doing it, took me under his wing. And I was timid. I was scared to talk to people. I was scared to send emails out to shadow people. And so what he would do is he would call those people for me because they were his coworkers. Hey, one of my proteges wants to shadow you. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Bam, easy. So don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it be me or someone that you do want to learn from, right? We were all in that position where we didn't know what the heck we were doing. We were falling on our face and we failed. And to go back to what I said earlier, like we don't want you to fall on your face and fail the way we did.
Right.
Mhm.
There's a reason why we learned the lesson the hard way, so you don't have to, And so, I would say, younger generation, do it. You just don't have to be a reporter. You could be a producer. You could be a director, a manager, which are very important roles, especially for people like us. Those are the ones who ultimately veto or approve decisions. Luckily for me, some of my bosses may not have grown up in these circumstances, but I do have a boss who's from San Antonio who does have my back. But I also have the trust of my bosses. I've been doing it for almost 6 years that, wow, this kid knows what the hell he's talking about.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget the first time I did a story. I had talked about how Lanier High School kids, in my story, I had said over 96% of kids are economically disadvantaged.
Mhm.
And my boss from Austin at the time, she was like, hey, like, where did you get this stat? Like, you know, I said, I got it from TA website, She's like, but where though? Like, I was like, I sent her the direct link. She's like, oh, okay. She's like, I just couldn't believe that a place. I was like, yeah, that's how poor we are over here. That's how much we don't have, you know? And that was like the first, like that was her lesson to learn, right? Through me. Because she could have easily like changed, like, there's no way that's real. Cut that out. Like, you know, but she asked me and, you know, I had to school her. And so, and never again was I ever questioned about like data like that. And I'm like, no, one, I got this data from a credible source that every education reporter uses. And so sure enough, that was her. She's like, I didn't know that. I didn't know an area. I was like, yes, that's how bad it is. You know, and my director, who is no longer with us, I had to show her the Alazan courts. I showed her how many school districts we have. I showed her, you know, the historical redlining in San Antonio. And she was baffled. Yeah. And all she said was, what do you need from me to help you tell all these stories? Oh man, love that woman. Shout out Larissa. But yeah, I mean, my advice to younger kids, you can do it. Like it's literally, like I said, I'm not special, you know. Just don't come for my job, because then I'll have a problem with you. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, don't take the tias away.
Yeah, the tias belong to me. Nah, I'm kidding. No, the more the merrier. Like I always tell the young kids, I hate gatekeepers. You know, and if the more the better, because I mean, it takes a load off my shoulders. Because that means there's better storytellers out there alongside me, so I don't have to be the only one telling these stories. Because then my phone will be the only one that gets blown up every day.
Right.
And there might be something that, you know, maybe these younger storytellers, maybe they catch that you didn't.
Exactly.
And so, you know, that's something that's going to be valuable.
Yeah, the COVID kids.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's like, you know, and there's a lot of young mentees that I have. They know what that's like. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to my whole life. A device has been in my hand. You know, smartphones didn't come around till I was freshman year of high school, sophomore year of high school. Yeah, because that's when like the first iPhone came out, I think. Or no. So freshman year, high school, basically, right? And so, you know, I came in from like the modern time, or the simple times where everyone uses a house phone, you know, and if somebody had a cell phone, better call after 9, because that's when my minutes are free era.
Oh my goodness.
You know? And so we have that, I guess, to ground us, because we knew what it was like to not have that, to make a phone call and you wait on the curb for your parents to pick you up, and they're taking, like, you can't blow up their phone like you can now.
So much of what you're saying right now, I'm like, that's just hitting so close to home.
Yeah, you know?
Oh my God.
And so, like, these younger kids, they know stuff that I don't, you know, and they could school me, and I could be the bridge for them and the older cats who refuse to, like, learn things. I know older reporters that are just like, I refuse to learn that. I'm old school. I'm like, dude, like, you're doing yourself and like the people a disservice.
Yeah.
Like get with the times, man. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like,
yeah.
Like, I think it'll be cool if I see like a 70-year-old guy, like, you know, knows how to use his phone and the laptop. And I do know a lot of old people like that. But yeah, so these younger kids, man, I'm excited to learn. I am learning from them in real time, but I don't know, like the COVID babies.
Yeah.
Like all that, man, that's crazy. Like they went through stuff.
Yeah.
For sure. And even acknowledging that, a lot of people, I feel like, can discount that, like, oh yeah, like you've got it a lot easier. You've got your phone, you've got all this, like having to learn from home. I wasn't like, it was such a big deal for people. I know a lot of people who were very, you know, also people who like missed out on like high school milestones and stuff like that. Yeah. Like I know a lot of people from a class just like 2 under me, 3 under me, I'm a bit younger, were like unable to go to prom even though they've been looking forward to it. They missed out on being able to graduate in person.
The drive-through graduation.
Yeah.
That's weird. It's crazy to think that was 5 years ago.
Yeah,
or
seriously.
Almost 5 years ago come this summer. But yeah, it was nuts. And then, you know, all the lack of social skills they came back with, and having to learn that. I mean, it's really interesting. And 5 years later, right, from the anniversary of COVID's coming up, or the COVID shutdown at least next month. And I don't know, it's pretty nuts. And you can't wait to see what these younger storytellers have to say.
Yeah.
Years from now, when they become reporters, because
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, you covered COVID, but I lived it. I'm like, hey, true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I still had my job. Like, I got so lucky. I got hired in December 2019. And so
Ooh, right before.
Yes.
right before,
Mm-hmm.
and I was freelancing for the paper. I was working at a coffee shop at the time, so I definitely wouldn't have had any job, period.
Yeah. Because that's
and
when it was
so-
still like murmurs. I remember
Yeah.
like talking
Yeah.
with coworkers, like, did y'all see on the news like that thing? that's
Yeah,
going
and patient was it
around?"
patient zero
Yeah.
showed up here at the base. Yeah, that was nuts. But yeah, I mean the young generation. I'm excited, and I don't want to be considered an OG. I'm only 29, but
Mhm.
I'm gonna be 30 next month. But it's funny, man. I talk with I do career days a lot. I do a lot of speaking engagements at colleges, and it's like, oh, sir. I don't mind being called sir. I used to hate it when I would call a guy sir. I'm not that old. But it's when they're like, oh, how old are you, sir? Oh, I'm 29. Damn.
Yeah.
Like, when's 29? Damn. Like that.
Happens to us all, I guess.
Man, they hit me with the Kevin Hart. Damn. I'm not old at all. Like, I'm excited what the 30s bring for me.
Yeah.
Because, this is like, I want to do this, obviously. My own podcast. I love this setup too. This is really sick. But
Thanks.
I just want to take my storytelling to a different level.
Mhm.
And doing it like I'm not finished it with it yet. I finished the first version, the Hispanic Elvis documentary.
Mm.
Ooh.
But when I premiered it at Barrio Barista, which coffee shop on the West Side,
Flex.
if you want to support them,
Mhm.
a lot of people showed up. Some people drove down from Dallas, but most importantly, his sister and his brother showed up. And his brother has all his capes, all his guitars, his bike, everything. So I went to his house, interviewed him there. So I'm plugging him into the documentary. So hopefully I should be done with that before March. But
Do you know where it might be coming out?
That's a good question. I'm thinking about submitting it for Cine Festival
Ooh.
de Guadalupe, the longest running Latino film festival in the country, which is in our beloved 7207. I think that would be the best place because literally his bus stop was right across the street. He would always.
Yeah.
I have so many videos and photos of him there.
That's cool. That would be such an honor to have it there.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
feel like that's like Barrio. I chose Barrio because it's West Side spot too, and it was the only place I felt comfortable doing it. I didn't want to do it like like in an arts district that wasn't the West Side, and
Right.
so I figured I was like, let's do it there for like the rough cut, right?
Mhm.
And people loved it. It was only 13 minutes, so I'm assuming with his brother it should be around 20 minutes now because. Man, some old photos of him. It was really sick. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. Excited for my 30s. We'll see what comes out of it. Putting myself out there more. MCing things. Hosting the Cesar Chavez March again this year. So I'll be MCing that.
Very nice.
MCing a gala. Going to South by Southwest for their education. They have an education festival. I didn't even know that.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, y'all should do that next year. It's really sick. But mainly educators, but reporters can go too. And anyone can go, but it's a whole week long of like panels, different things, anything education related. And then it leads up to like the music stuff the following week. So I'll be doing that all next week. And then I'll be at the Librarian Association conference in Dallas. I'll be a panelist for that.
Very nice.
So it's sick just putting myself out there and,
Yeah.
being a kid who's used to be very shy, that I get to do. It's cool that I get to do all these cool things.
Yeah.
For sure.
Rub elbows with these cool people. Something I knew that I would do. And if you don't think that you could do these things, you can.
Mhm.
Just saying.
I mean, he just came back from vacation and already has this whole lineup of events that you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
So that just goes to show you.
Yeah, that's what I was really concerned about. I was like, man, I got a lot on my plate. Like they asked me to host the Edgewood Awards. And I was speaking with the lady who runs it. And I was like, hey, like, this is what my schedule's like. And she's like, no, Mijo, let's do it for next year. You sound busy. And so I told her, I was like, anything I could do to help you out though, because anything West Side related, I'm all for it. You know? So yeah.
We're nearing the end of our interview. And one main thing that we want to know, even though you've clearly shared that throughout this recording, is What's one thing that you've come to learn and love about San Antonio's West Side that's really shaped your perspective on the world?
We have a lot of pioneers that should get more love than they do. And I say that is just because I have friends and I show them around the West Side. I love showing all the murals, the art, the architecture, the hidden gems, or just the gems for those of us who go to them frequently,
Mm-hmm.
and meeting business owners and them like, wow, like this is a special place. And I'm like, it is. And a lot of, these legends are still alive. A lot of them are in their 70s, some in their 80s, and they've blazed a trail for us. I think ultimately that's what I've loved most. People like to take pictures of the Veladora
Mm-hmm.
in front of the Guadalupe Cultural Arts, which was done by Jesse Trevino, legendary artist. I always tell them, like, you go up the street, Lanier High School is right there. A lot of important people went to Lanier High School. And people that I'm still learning, like, I just learned that the Gamez Law guy went there. I was like, what?
Really?
I didn't know he went to Lanier.
With the ads everywhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, Carmen Tafoya, she grew up down the road, right? And she's our former Texas Poet Laureate, just an incredible author. Adriana Garcia, she's younger, but she's an incredible artist. Her murals are everywhere. It's just really cool I grew up with all that. Like, even I always tell people, we didn't have much material-wise, but man, like, we have this beautiful art to look at. We had parks. We had community centers that kept us safe. That's what I've ultimately loved about the West Side. It's people constantly giving back, even if they don't have much.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Just like back in November, we went to the BiblioTech area at the San Juan Square. And my coach, Ralph, who used to be the supervisor of San Juan, he's retired. He doesn't work. He works part-time for the city now, but he doesn't run San Juan anymore. But he still gives away food boxes like he did for 11 years at San Juan, that he was there from 2009 to 2020. And so we literally went in that back lot, like right where BiblioTech's at, that back lot,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
where all the covered parking's at, give away food boxes. Cars lined up to like Cerralvo Street, And so it was cool to see like people like Ralph still giving back. Even though he doesn't have much anymore, he's not making tenured supervisor parks money anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but he's still giving back. And so that's what I always loved about the West Side, and still love about the West Side, is no matter what, we're going to find a way to give back. And we always know that community is always going to be there.
Very well put, man. That was beautiful. Last thing, we like to ask people that we interview what it is that they're reading these days, watching, listening to, anything at all that you are.
Since we are a library.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I have like 5 books that are serving as decorations right now that I
Very
haven't even
nice.
cracked open. But the book that I do want to crack open, I don't know the title of it, but my good buddy Kerry Clack, who's a columnist for the Express News, I saw his book. I have 2 of his books, but I saw, it was like an old photo of him, and I was like, what the? I was like, this is Kerry. So I bought the
Mhm.
book and I texted him. I was like, hey man, like, I need you to sign this book. You're a legend. 'Cause he's an incredible writer. He was born and raised on the East Side, and to me, he's just like another important San Anto figure. But yeah, that's the first book that I want to crack open. But aside from news stuff, that's all I really read is like news.
Yeah.
News stuff. Like right now, anything related to the legislative session, I'm reading that.
Mhm.
But as far as watching, I just finished Better Call Saul, which is
Nice.
a great,
Nice,
great show.
yeah.
I think that show, honestly, is a tiny bit better than Breaking Bad. And I love Breaking Bad.
I hear people say that quite a bit. They're like, I enjoyed Better Call Saul more than Breaking Bad, and they're both like top tier shows.
Oh,
Mhm.
fantastic shows. My favorite show of all time, though, and nothing will ever eclipse it, is The Wire. The Wire is the best show ever.
Nice.
To me, it's like The Wire, Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. But I mean, they're all great shows. The one I want to watch, though, everyone keeps talking about, is Severance.
Yeah.
You would get along so well with the management and staff at West. 'cause
Yes.
one of our coworkers absolutely loves Severance. And then our managers, they, super into Sopranos, Breaking Bad.
I love
Oh, yeah.
Sopranos.
We could have a recording just on y'all talking about those shows alone.
We should do that.
Oh, that would be so nice.
No, because it's
Genuinely.
cool because a lot of TV like art reflects reality, and even though The Sopranos is about this mobster, but I mean they touch a lot on mental health, right? They touch a lot on like a lot of corruption, right? And like when they're talking about, one of my favorite scenes is where they're talking about this HUD scam project that they do, where like they buy up all these things and they tell the government, oh, we're going to turn this into affordable housing. They never do, and they just pocket all the money. But when they're talking about the second part of that scam, the camera pans out and it's outside the diner. You can't hear a single word they're saying. And I was like, oh, that's so brilliant.
Yeah.
And The Wire, I mean, everything they talk about, education, narcotics, they talk about journalism, season 5, politics. It's just like, oh man, I always tell people, I was like, if you're gonna be in politics or like watch The Wire. And that's what one of my mentors told me. You're from the West Side? You've never seen The Wire? I was like, yeah, bro, I'm from the West Side. I didn't have cable. So of course I didn't watch The Wire. I didn't have HBO. He's like, oh, true. So he gave me his DVD set.
Oh, nice.
Well, he loaned it to me and I still haven't given it back.
It's still on a loan. It's fine.
Sorry, Ben. He's now the deputy editor at the Boston Globe, actually.
You can buy another one.
Yeah. He's got money. He's got that East Coast money. But that's what I'm kind of watching, is just a lot of that, and any documentary I can find, honestly. I really want to watch like old films. I just like the way they're shot. Like I finally watched Godfather and Godfather 2.
Nice.
Not watching 3 because I know it's bad.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
But yeah, just anything to kind of like distract me. But also stuff that I want to learn from. And like when I see like films, one thing I pay attention to is like, how are they shooting this? I pay attention to that a lot because I shoot my own stories. I edit them. I go in front of the camera. I do everything. I write my own script. And so for me, it's like, how can I make this story? Like if we're in this room, I'm like, how can I turn this room into something that's interesting?
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm going to shoot it a certain way and have different angles. And, and so I just watch mainly stuff like that to, I guess, tap into that creative. And I just watch silly videos.
Yeah.
Mexican TikTok is so funny. It's my favorite thing.
Sounds like a pretty healthy balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to in this crazy world that we live in.
You got your documentaries, educational material, you got your TV dramas, and then you got your doom scrolling on the side.
Oh, yeah. I love my doom scrolling. My YouTube algorithm right now is like all content that is people quizzing each other. So there's this guy, he's super like hyped up guy, really nice guy. He does sports trivia and he does it across all sports. And his YouTube channel's grown so much. But then there's this other guy that I found. He hangs out at universities and quizzes kids about geography. And there's this one recurring kid who's like super smart and like he challenges like 5 kids at a time. That's how good he is. And then there's like this other guy, and I'm just like, wow, like this is now my algorithm, which I like. I like
niche.
this.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, so much better than I thought it was going to be. Anytime anyone's ever told me like, my YouTube algorithm is just filled with, I'm like, oh God, I'm already sorry. But like, no, that sounds pretty.
Yeah, I'm like
cool.
learning the capitals of these countries I've never heard of, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna use this one day.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, hey, like tell one of my homies, like, hey, fool, did you know that the capital of Beijing is this? No,
just random flex. Like, I'm ready for Jeopardy.
Yeah. Come on, call me up. No, I would be terrible at that. No.
Oh man.
All right, well, that's gonna wrap it up for us. Once again, Jose, thank you so much for joining us. We know you're super busy, and it means a lot to us that you could definitely take time out of your schedule. With that said, do you mind sharing with our listeners and viewers where they could find you if they want to check out some of your articles or just follow you on social media?
Yeah, just follow me at Sports Guy Jose on Twitter, Instagram, Jose Arredondo if you want to find me on Facebook. And if you just want to find our news site, just type in Jose Arredondo Spectrum News and then my bio will pop up. I'm glad the algorithm finally's got that. But if you type in Jose Arredondo, it's me some baseball guy that used to play for the Angels,
Mhm.
and I'm about to eclipse him in the algorithm. And then some guy named Jose Arredondo, who was killed in Mexico. So hopefully
Yeah.
at some point, it's me at the top of the algorithm without having to put news next to it.
Okay, so let's help
And
that
with your
algorithm
help.
then. Exactly. Let's get him to the top.
Yeah. Or even if you type in your Tia's favorite reporter, I pop up now. It's hilarious.
There you go.
Oh,
Type in
that's awesome.
Jose Arredondo or your Tia's favorite reporter.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
All right.
But thank you again for joining us. And once again, we are BiblioTech On Air, BiblioTech's official podcast. I'm Rosanna.
I'm Lewis.
And we will catch y'all on the next episode. Bye.